For those of you I haven't had the privilege of meeting yet, I'm Brian King. I'm new to this center. I'm not new to Zen, however. I began my studies in 1993 under the late Kongo Roshi, who was the abbot of the Zen Buddhist Temple of Chicago, which is in Evanston. He passed away in the late 90s, and I drifted off and got caught up in life. College education, beginning a family, but I stayed with my practice for the past 20-some years. And in recent months, I felt pulled to engage in a much more disciplined exploration. And ironically, about 2 days after I put that intention out there, I just happened to be having a conversation with a friend, and she mentioned that she was studying meditation here, and I was not familiar with the center. So I looked it up and read a little bit about Roshi and his background, and he and I met and fortunately hit it off. So I've become an advanced member, and it's like a homecoming. You know, it's very, very wonderful to be re-engaged with the Sangha again. And my story has, well, when people hear it, they hear a lot of tragedy. They hear a lot of pain and suffering, which is part of it. But what they miss immediately is the opportunity that's in the story as well. In a nutshell, I grew up with undiagnosed ADHD and dyslexia, which made school very, very difficult, especially socializing. I was bullied a lot, even by the teachers. My graduation present from high school was stage 3 testicular cancer. It was diagnosed 3 weeks before finals. So they removed the tumor, I took finals, a month later it came back, and I spent the summer in chemotherapy. And the hair falls out, and the friends don't know how to deal with it, so they keep their distance, and feelings of abandonment and betrayal come up. And once I got my life kind of back on track, I went to college, got my master's in social work, met a woman, got married, and have 3 boys, all 3 of whom have Asperger's and ADHD. Asperger's is a form of autism. And throughout my life, I've had increasing joint pain and clumsiness. And about 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with a connective tissue disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And what it basically means, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Danlos. Named after the 2 guys who were kind of studying it at the same time. Give them both credit so they don't fight publicly about getting credit for things, you know. And essentially what it is that the genes that produce the collagen that makes the connective tissue, tendons, ligaments, blood vessels, that's faulty. So my collagen's not good at being collagen. So my joints are increasingly unstable. And in many ways, it's harder to swallow because the connective tissue in my esophagus is affected. And yeah, there's times where I did the pity party. You know, why is this happening to me? It's one more thing. This is so unfair. But when I realized that the more I entertained the idea that I was being done unto, that I was a victim somehow, I was not engaging in kindness. I was engaging in punishment, in judging myself as unworthy, and that's why these things were happening. I didn't like where that was taking me. So I reflected upon that. I sat, I watched my breath. And I have this natural tendency towards inquiry. When I did, is it Teisho, when you accept no, Teisho is when you give the Dharma talk. When you receive the Jukai, yeah, that's it. When I did Jukai with Kongo Roshi, he gave me the Dharma name Sozensho, which means it is in my nature to reflect. I'm very curious. I look at what my mind does and I ask, why that? Why is that you went with that right now? Is that the best you can do? Are there other options? So when I found myself engaging in the suffering, when I caught myself, I'd ask, why'd you go with that? What need does that serve right now? And usually it was the need to entertain the I, validate the I. I am suffering. I am worthy. I deserve more. And a lot of kindness, I found, comes from tapping into that larger view that whether we're worthy or unworthy is not determined by a single event. Because something happens into our lives that creates difficulty, it doesn't mean we're suddenly unworthy. It's an opportunity to look at it and reinforce our dedication to being kind and compassionate and loving. And that's essentially what I've learned to do with all those things that show up. How do I use this to practice kindness toward myself? On the days when I'm so exhausted I can't get out of bed, when things hurt really, really bad and I can't go play with the kids, I could say I'm not being a good enough father. I'm supposed to be out there playing with them. I'm supposed to be out there on the swings. But if my body doesn't allow me to do that, what other options do I have? Can I be present to them and let them know, I see you and only you in this moment. Yes, I can't join you on the swings. I can't go down the slide with you. But can I support you in exploring the world? Can I be here and say, look at that, isn't that awesome? Just yesterday I was watching a video, and my youngest son, my 11-year-old Connor, came over to me and he did this wonderful drawing. And he said, you can pause that video, can't you? I said, oh, of course I can. I hit the pause button. Yeah. And he does this reveal. He has his thumb in his little notebook, and he flips it around and shows me the picture that he'd been working on so diligently. And he explained to me what it was, where he learned about it, talked to me about the precision and the lines that he's done. And I just spent that time joining him in his enthusiasm over what he created. Now, I've met other parents that say, you know what else you could have done here? And they immediately start guiding and correcting. And when they come from that place, what they're saying is, this moment isn't good enough. What he's done is not good enough. We can't celebrate it as it is. We need to fix it. It's a very unkind thing to do. In fact, when you think of kindness, does anybody have any thoughts? How would you define that for somebody, what kindness is?
Non-judging, being open.
If you were to act upon it, if someone was watching you and saying, that's kindness, that's what it looks like.
A hug.
Hugs are good. There's scientific proof to back that up, too. Anyone else?
Caring.
How do you do caring?
Well, yeah, I view kindness as action, and then through that action to nurture.
So nurturing is in service of growth. Very life-affirming. When I act in a kind way, I come from that place of wanting the other person or inviting the other person to feel seen. I am present with you. I see you and only you. This that you want to share with me, I want to accept with gratitude. So coming from those places and saying, wanting to manifest it in such a way that if somebody were watching you, and they are, whether you know it or not, could they look at you and say, yes, that's how you do that? Because we have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of values, but we don't necessarily think about how do we make that more concrete in our everyday practice. We kind of make it a lot of it's unconscious. We just kind of do it. It just is our way. But the more conscious we become of it, the more deliberate it can be. So one of the benefits of using a cane is you have to be mindful of every step you take, because you're always one step away from falling on your butt when you have lousy balance. So that's one of the reasons why circumstances such as this can be very valuable practice, because you can resent the circumstance or you can look for the opportunity. And I imagine everyone here has had some kind of life event where you felt socked in the gut. And if you haven't had that yet, you've been hiding from life. You're not taking chances. You're not taking risks. You're not out there enough. And being kind to yourself involves first being honest with your first honest response. It might be anger. It might be sadness. And some of us say, oh, I have no right to feel that way. Other people are suffering much more than I am. I have no right to be angry. Well, you're human, aren't you? Why are other people have a greater right to their emotions than you? One thing I tell my clients a lot, I work with clients that have ADHD and dyslexia, and I tell them there are no wrong emotions, there are only honest ones. And whatever came up, it had a source. So that's the time to look back and say, why is this the response? Where did this come from? What decisions or assumptions have I made about this moment that resulted in anger or sadness? And if I were to sit there and observe it and nurture it and learn to depersonalize it, in other words, let go of the I portion of that conversation, then what happens? You can be much more objective about it because you went from it happened to me to this event occurred. I had a response to this event. A response that was maybe conscious or unconscious. I acknowledge this response. If there are some tears that need to be shed, I let them come. But then when the tears have gone out, you ask again, what else can I do with this experience? What options does it give me? It's an opportunity to learn compassion, to be more present, to be more grateful. You don't have to be specific, but has anybody had what you would call a life-changing event? One of the things that I imagine you discovered is that in order to get through it, you needed to invite things into your life. New knowledge, new skills, new people. You had to be more resourceful. So in many, many ways, difficult situations that challenge our existing skill set, where we don't have what we need to handle it all, we then need to open our arms and invite other things in. And our life expands because of these things. New people, new relationships, new opportunities. I wanted to grow in my practice, so did all of you. That's what brought you here. Because you realize there are others out there further down the path than I am. And I could go through the suffering unnecessarily to find my way out of pride. I want to do it. I want to do it on my own. Or you realize the value in leadership, in mentoring, in community. And you find when you really invest yourself in that, how much smoother the journey can be. And isn't it nice when that happens every now and then? It's not always the case. But life is very interesting in all the things it doles out to you. One teaching opportunity after another. Now, one thing that I was thinking about it this morning when I got here, because I'm always asking myself, why that, why that, why that? I'm always reflecting. I've always felt the greeting good morning is a little presumptive. And I've kind of had an issue with it. Because it's like projecting on somebody else, this is how you're supposed to feel. And instead I just say, hello. How are you? And I want to be present with them and just kind of tune in to where they are and invite them to have that moment, whatever it is. And if somebody says good morning to you, I'll just say, it certainly is. I'm glad you noticed too. So usually I don't do as much talking as this. I like to do some dialoguing because this is our experience that we're having in this conversation. It's just not about me gabbing on about my experience. Because kindness is a very co-created thing. I have my intentions. that I want to put out there, but kindness is also that synergy that occurs when we come together with our shared values. So by all means, share with me your experiences of either giving kindness to yourself or being reminded that you are worthy of kindness because of how somebody else treated you. Anybody want to share that?
Yeah. Somebody picked me up this morning and brought me to the Zendo. I was really happy. Thank you, Karen.
You've been outed as a kind person. And why do we do these things for each other?
I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
didn't hear
So
that.
why do we do these things for each other? These little kind gestures.
Well, in my own life, I'm trying to do more for other people. That's been my intention, and so I look for ways.
Did that decision happen in a vacuum?
No.
So where did that come from?
Probably people being kind to me is part of it. You know, noticing when people are kind to me. I hurt my foot and I got a lot of emails and from people here at the center asking me how I was doing and so on, and missing me, that they miss seeing me here, and I really appreciated all of that. Also, someone said, well, take advantage of not have to be doing a lot, take advantage of the time, because I couldn't use my foot. I had to stay off of it, and that was a nice reminder, because I was sometimes get a little, you get a little, well, I should be doing this, or I'd like to be doing, no, well, this is the way it is right now,
Mm-hmm.
so how can I take advantage, or, of the situation? And I appreciated that. It was what I needed at the time. So
The purest act of kindness towards somebody else, or generosity like you demonstrated, is when you do it because it's part of who you are, not because you're keeping score. I helped you because being helpful is in my nature, because I am a proponent of kindness, whether you choose to receive it or not, because there are some people out there that are very closed off. And the problem in that instance is they have decided that to accept kindness, to be vulnerable to another human being, is dangerous. They're afraid to let you in. But you still gave them the option. Somebody in the form of you showed up in that day and offered them an opportunity to be given to. Maybe somebody else will receive it that day. Maybe that little moment will stick with them and remind them that there are people out there who are willing to be kind. And then maybe the next person they let in, because you planted a seed. But what that person does beyond that is not your responsibility. You're just showing up and being who you are, a cultivator of kindness in other people's lives, and also nurturing it within yourself. And you had a wonderful example when you talked about your foot. That, yeah, I started doing that, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. Aha! That doesn't really work here if my commitment is to living in the present way of things and seeing that they are perfect exactly the way they are. My foot hurt, I can't walk on it. Of course! Of course this is the circumstance. Why would I ask it to be other than it is? It makes no sense. When it comes to the weather, and you live in the Midwest, you don't like the weather, give it 15 minutes, it'll change. Right? So one of the quote that I've really hung on to over the years is, you cannot control the weather, all you can do is dress for it. It's freezing outside, doesn't it stink? No, it's cold. That's it. I want to go outside. Great, what do you do? How do you meet it where it's at? It's cold, you bundle up. It's hot, you dress more lightly. You crank up the AC, thank heavens for that. You drink more water. So it's not just about how we meet each other. It's about how we meet the reality of things. It's raining. Is it hot? Does something hurt? Do I need to adjust a little bit differently? It's about showing up and extending compassion to something that you realize is inherently worth your time and attention, and wanting to do right by it. And of course, the best way to cultivate that is beginning with you. Because the people that beat themselves up, they're not the most accepting folks. They tend to be quick to judge, quick to belittle, and that's a real mirror into their inner conversation. See, this is someone that's suffering. Someone who has a deeply set belief that they are not good enough, they are not worthwhile. And because we project our internal world onto the universe, if I'm not good enough, the world isn't good enough. So everything needs to be nitpicked. But Paul.
I had been running a group called MoveOn.org for about 5 years, and I decided to, for one reason or another, stop doing that. And I got a couple of emails that were very nice in terms of thanking me for doing that. And that felt really good.
That you stopped doing it, they thanked you?
No. They thanked me for the effort I had made to do it.
So the service that you had put in to date,
Yeah.
they realized that your contribution was something they really wanted to recognize. Did that make it easier for you to move on in some way?
I think maybe it made me feel appreciated for what I had done.
You realized that your efforts
Or not.
did well.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories of the Buddha was that there was a time where there was someone in the same geographic area the Buddha was, who heard that the Buddha was so serene that he could not be rattled. And this gentleman was just angry at life, angry at everything, very distrusting. He said, "Oh yeah, nothing can rattle him? Yeah, let's see about that." So he sought the Buddha out, and when he met him, he proceeded to curse him out, call him a fraud, everything you could think of, and the Buddha just sat there and smiled. And when there was a pause, he says to the man, "Excuse me, may I ask you a question?" The gentleman said, "Sure." He said, "If someone offers you a gift and you decline to accept it, to whom does that gift belong?" The gentleman said, "Well, I guess to the person that was giving it." And the Buddha said, "So if I decline to accept the gift of your abuse, to who then does it belong?" And of course, the gentleman was speechless. So what he was basically pointing out is our equanimity, our serenity, in many ways depends on what invitations we accept. So with all the shiny objects in the world, all the thoughts that come into our minds, there are all these invitations to be distracted, to get caught up in these things. And you can look at it and say, yeah, I remember when that happened. Yeah, I remember the anger that came up. But I declined the invitation to entertain that. Because right now I'm just minding my breath. Right now I'm just listening to the sirens outside. Or the dog that came by earlier, I could hear him panting. I'm listening to that. I'm not entertaining these thoughts that are coming up of past hurts or desires of things that should be here or shouldn't be here. That's one really powerful way to be kind to yourself. declining a lot of invitations. And there are numerous ones. Any fellow Facebookers here? Oh yeah. People often say, I'm getting off of Facebook because I'm sick of the negativity. Okay. All right. Well, one of the beautiful things about Facebook is you can select what you see. You can decide who's inside your circle. I've got about 3,200 people now, and they don't all interact. Some of them just watch, which is fine. But I run a tight ship. We are here to be kind and accepting and supportive. Well, I have a First Amendment right for free speech. Yes. I also have the right not to listen to you. And I'm going to exercise that right. If there are others that want to get together to be angry, I'm sure you'll find them, especially on Facebook. But that's not what we do here. That's not what we do in this community. We make different choices. So I've been chattering on and on for about half an hour. We have half an hour left if we want to use it. Julie.
Do you tell these people when you unfriend them?
I give them a chance first.
What is that?
I remind them, I say, I can see that you're angry. I can see that you feel very strongly about what it is you're saying. Because they'll say, you're wrong, you're stupid, they'll be insulting. I'll say, I can tell that you're very passionate about this. However, we have chosen to address these things in a much more open-minded, understanding way. We want to invite each other to consider new ways of thinking. We don't want to demand that they do. We don't take it from a right or wrong standpoint. We take it from a, have you considered this point of view standpoint? So I educate them on the terms of engagement, so to speak. Then, in many cases, they then come after me. They'll say, that's a lot of BS. You don't know what you're talking about. Then I'll say, seems like this group is not a good fit for you. So I don't send them off in a scolding way. I give them an opportunity to learn more civil ways of engaging. But I don't send them off with a, get out of here, you're dirtying my water or something. I try to invite them to do something more compassionate. And when I send them away wishing them well. That they find some way to get beyond the suffering that they're currently feeling. Does that answer your question? Is this something that you've encountered?
Yeah. I had a guy who was
Take your time.
he left this song and it's kind of funny actually, but I got scared too. He had a belief system that he's really passionate about, and I kind of agree with them, but I don't always. So I feel like he's influencing me, and I'm afraid of that.
So it sounds like somewhere in there you have a desire to stay connected to him. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
One of the ways we stay connected is through emotional experiences or intellectual experiences, where you allow yourself to entertain something that maybe doesn't feel quite right to you, but it's a means of staying connected to that person. Do you feel that this is a relationship that you would be better served without?
I don't, I don't know.
So one thing you could do is spend some time when you do your practice by yourself, being very honest about what your own priorities are. What are your own values? And is this a relationship that would help you reinforce that? Or is this a relationship that invites you to entertain something other than that? It's very hard to let go of people that we care about when they're suffering and we want to be a part of them finding their way beyond suffering. Wanting that for people is wonderful. But it's also important to realize that you may not be the right fit to help them accomplish that. Because as human beings, we can complement each other and synergize very beautifully. But that doesn't mean everybody's going to be an ideal dance partner for you, or you for them. Sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is to wish them well on their journey. Because to stay connected to you isn't necessarily in service of their growth, even though you really, really want it for them. I have many teachers throughout our lives. Some of them we really click with. Some we might say, oh, it's the worst teacher ever. And the person sitting next to you says, oh, that was my favorite class. What are you talking about? I love that. Just because the connection was different. So what's going through your mind?
You said two different things, so like to be kind is you're not trying to make them grow.
Hmm?
And then you just said something like letting go of them will help them grow.
Mm-hmm. Let me bring those two things together. As part of our practice is we want to help people discover the way beyond their own suffering. Wanting that for them isn't the same as you being the one to show them. For example, when you know someone needs help, my background is in social work, so I'm all about bringing resources. In many, many cases, I helped somebody get an answer or a solution they needed by sending them to somebody else. Because I didn't have those skills, I didn't have those resources. The intentions were there, but I didn't have the skills to help them. So by letting them go is a way of saying, if you try to get your needs met here with me, it's likely not going to happen. And what that could teach you, unfortunately, is that there are no solutions. Things can't get better. It's like the married couple who wants their spouse to be their everything. They don't have friends outside of that circle. And they think, well, if I can't get it met here, I guess the solution doesn't exist. I guess it is what it is. This is the reality. The reality is the world is much bigger. And when you know that, and encourage the person to say, the answer's out there for you. I'm confident in that because the universe contains everything, if you're open to it. But unfortunately, I feel that the solution will not be found between us. So sometimes the greatest act of compassion is letting somebody else go. Continue on your journey. The answer is out there. Please show yourself the kindness in continuing to look for it because you're worth it. Does that clarify that some? I sense there is a real helper in you. Do you feel in some way that if you're unable to help people you care about, that you failed somehow?
Maybe, I don't know, I kind of feel kind of arrogant sometimes.
That's an unfortunate aspect of the human experience, isn't it? So when you say sometimes you feel arrogant, how does it show up in your thinking?
Like I should.
So it shows up in the forms of a lot of shoulds. Anybody else spend time shoulding all over themselves? Should be doing this or shouldn't be doing that. And that should is the most obvious red flag that we are assessing this moment as not good enough. We are assessing ourselves as not good enough. Do you realize how many people the Buddha could not get through to? No matter how clear his understanding, there were some people that just were not available. They weren't available to hear it. The world is still like that. That's why there's so much suffering. That doesn't mean we throw in the towel, because we've committed ourselves to this practice. In many cases, the people that are resistant to it haven't experienced those who live from that place of kindness and compassion and understanding. And we can show up and give them an invitation in that moment to entertain the fact that it's possible to be in a relationship with someone like this. But as I mentioned earlier, maybe we're just the seed. We showed them it's possible. And as they journey through their path, they'll come across somebody else, because time has allowed that seed you planted to grow a little bit.
You know, I have probably my best friend when I was studying at Zen Center in Los Angeles in the early 70s. He was really my best friend, and over the years we've grown apart. And about every 7 years I try to have a phone conversation with him, but he gets angry at me, and I'm kind of bewildered about why is he so angry at me? Why is he acting like an asshole? Because he does. And we had a mutual friend that just passed away right before I had my knee operation. So I thought it was an opportunity to reconnect with my friend, and tried to have another phone conversation with him, which didn't go well. And I thought we were making progress, and I realized we weren't. And you know, it's a source of pain for me. a source of a lot of sadness because I actually, this friend of mine can act like an asshole, and I still find that I really care for him, and I would like to be connected with him. But he don't want to be connected with me, and that's painful.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have to accept that. And then I also realized that there were things that I did in a relationship where I was an asshole. That was kind of shocking. Because I was thinking, well, he's the asshole, but I'd done things too that he was upset about. I started to learn from him why he was angry at me. And that was really hard to hear, that I had done things in the relationship that were really kind of narcissistic and selfish and not very skillful. And I could see why he didn't want to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I realized that I have to forgive him. I don't have to. I can choose not to. But if I want to have any opportunity to be connected with him, I have to start on my own end by just forgiving him. And then give him some gift, something. Another phone call when I'm ready, an email, something. And, sometimes you just carry a sadness in your heart about something. You have to just carry it. It can't be fixed, but maybe forgiveness can come as close to clearing the air, I think. But it's a process, it takes time.
It's a beautiful example. I just want to add a little bit to what Roshi was saying that I absolutely want to hear from you, Paul. I still have some sadness from my cancer experience, but it has lessened over time as my relationship has changed to it. So it isn't like it never happened. I've continued to reflect and grow, and now it's kind of there as a bit of a background. But I think in some way that residual sadness can be of value, because it allows you to be much more empathic with those who have sadness. Imagine how it would be if we extinguished our emotions. How could you connect with somebody else? How could you want to be helpful if you felt no sadness? I'm not saying hold on to devastation. That's paralyzing. But like Roshi so beautifully said, it's part of our human experience. Some things that really impacted you on a very human level, you can't just wash it all away or flip it off like a light switch. There tends to be some little bits of it there over time. And that's okay, so long as you are kind towards it instead of wanting to shut it away. That's a big difference. Paul, you wanted to say?
We have the right to take care of ourselves. And so maybe we're right for somebody, but they're not right for us. There are a lot of different situations, but trying not to do the shoulds and whatever, sometimes it's just not there, and it's sad, perhaps, but we have the right to take care of ourselves. And a kind of a duty in a way to take care of ourselves.
We laugh, we grieve, and in many cases, no matter how enlightened we may think we are, we have unenlightened moments. Very human moments. And like your friend, my wife has no hesitation pointing out to me when I'm being an asshole. She's very good at letting me know that. It's unfortunately not as reciprocal an arrangement as I would like. So when I call her out on that, sometimes I get a little feet stomping and a temper tantrum, but we're working on that. Yeah, one thing, no matter how far you get in your practice, you don't stop being human. One thing we do is we get much more refined in our ability to spot it when it's happening. that tendency to should and judge. Say, oh yeah, there it is again. Being a little judgmental there. I'm not going to accept the invitation to go any further with that. I see that tendency to want to help, to be the one to help facilitate change in my friend's life. My I is really attached to that idea. But I also understand that, as Roshi pointed out, I can let this person go, and if there's sadness attached to that letting go, that doesn't mean I screwed up. It means that I miss my friend. So if anything, the sadness is an indication of your big heart, as opposed to that you made a mistake. What are you thinking, Julie?
About aggression.
How do you mean exactly?
Impulse to destroy things.
Is that something you sense from yourself or somebody else?
It's from
Is it okay if I share with you something I've learned about aggression? The obvious thing about aggression is to think that it's about anger, that it's about a desire to hurt. What I've learned is that aggression is rooted in a feeling of helplessness. It comes from a sense of panic. Your world is out of your control. Fight or flight, you need to defend yourself. So aggression is the fight response. I feel helpless and I need to fight for control. I need to prove that I can make things happen and I can be powerful. And I do that in a destructive way. Does that resonate, or is it totally off in left field?
Yeah, feeling out of control. And wanting to be in control of something. And being afraid.
I sense these have been feelings of yours for quite a long time. whatever control means, a desire to own, a desire to manipulate, I've learned that it's less about controlling it and more about not allowing it to control you. Being in charge of how you show up in that moment. When you think about what equanimity means, it's about being steady in the chaos. All of this stuff is happening around you, but can you maintain your commitment to how you want to show up in this world? Or do you get caught up in the frenzy? You see the people that get caught up in riots and all that stuff. They're the ones that get caught up in the emotion, and they allow themselves to be pulled into it because they either haven't established or they've lost connection to what they value most, how they want to show up. So one opportunity for you, Julie, is to spend some time and reconnect with who you've decided to be in this world. Because who you've decided to be can be a powerful influence on the things around you. Not controlling it and making it be the way you'd like it to be, but influencing it in such a way where you stand so strongly in who you are that you invite those around you to inquire about how do you do that? Because who we choose to be in this world is an invitation to others to explore this particular way of moving beyond our suffering and not allowing it to control us. And let me reassure you, Julie, you're not screwing up. You're on a very powerful path. And it's very emotionally charged. And it seems like these emotions can be very raw for you sometimes. But one thing I've learned is that in many cases, those who suffer the deepest develop the deepest compassion. And you know how to find me. I'm more than happy to talk to you more about this if you want to. Well, I think we've done a good amount. I'm very grateful that you all gave me your time. I know you can choose to do anything else with your time, but you chose to be here, and I'm extremely grateful for that. I wish that you have a day, however you decide to spend it. There are plenty of teachers there, and I look forward to getting to know each of you even more.
Thank you.
Okay? Namaste.
Namaste.